She set juju for her enemy, but her own son stepped on it. Nkechi always hated her neighbors for no reason. She had a better house than them, fried akara and kulikuli in front of their house, and even wore better clothes than them, but jealousy always found a way in. This was because her so-called neighbors, the Akanwas, were really smart even though they were poor. Their father was a palm wine tapper before he passed on, and the mother made and sold gari from the cassava farm behind their house. The Akanwas were devout Christians and they always prayed together, their voices not crossing the four walls of their home. Nkechi, on the other hand, always raised her voice and urged her children to be very loud during prayers. Her husband would leave early in the morning aimlessly and come home drunk. She envied the peace between the other family, but her jealousy was only but a little bit compared to when she heard celebrations in her neighbor's compound. She put her ears to the window and heard for the first time the Akanwas openly praising God in happiness. Ifeanyi Nwam, a law student of Unizik, isn't God just good? Nkechi froze on the spot. She needed no further explanation as she went inside, filled with rage. Ifeanyi got admission at one shot, and my own son has failed JAMB woefully 3 times? No, I cannot let this happen. She bitterly tied her wrapper and left the house. Her own son came home hungry and met an empty pot, so he went to the Akanwa's house for food. They welcomed him and told him the good news. He wasn't genuinely happy for Ifeanyi, but congratulated him while scooping big mounds of fufu from the plate served to him. He ate and asked for more. Emmanuel, wasn't that enough for you? Mrs. Akanwa asked. He replied rudely, that food was small, auntie. I came back from lesson and I need a lot of food to help my brain. She looked at him and shook her head. Well, the only food remaining there is for our breakfast tomorrow, if you care to join us there. He looked at her scornfully and hissed, walked out the door and slammed it. He looked around their compound and saw a guava tree. He climbed it with his big belly and started plucking the ripe juicy guava fruits, stuffing them into his mouth as if his life depended on it. After eating till his stomach couldn't take more, he gently climbed down and sat at the base of the tree and slept off. His eyes opened and it was already night time, so he rushed out of the compound and into his own house. He met his mother, frowning and lost in thought. He greeted her, but she didn't acknowledge his presence. Then, when he was about to go inside, she asked him, Where have you been since afternoon? I can see your bag and lesson books. He paused and answered with fear, I was at my friend's house. We studied together at lesson. She didn't say anything. The next morning, she heard him groaning in pain from his room. Then she entered and saw his swollen legs. She shouted at the top of her voice and neighbors gathered outside in fear. She came out crying that her son needs help. 2 young men carried the boy out to the veranda before running off to look for a vehicle to carry him. Lucky for her, the friend he claimed to have gone to see was coming to call him, so they would go together to lesson. You, this boy, you're a wizard. Your mother is a witch. What did you give to my son, you devil? She shouted at the top of her voice and ran towards him but was stopped by the crowd. The boy looked confused and scared, but still kept calm. When the crowd asked her what her reason was for saying such, she shouted, My son came home after eating at your house and now he's sick. Everyone turned in shock and looked at the boy. He had already started crying out of fear and embarrassment when he explained to them that he went home immediately and didn't go to his house. The crowd got confused. Then someone asked Emmanuel if he really went to his friend's place. Seeing he was caught already, he shamelessly explained how he went to the neighbor's place out of hunger. He also explained that he ate some guava fruits but slept off, woke up later and ran home in the evening. Color faded from Nkechi's face. She shouted very loudly and started crying. Ah, it's the devil's handwork, oh. Ah, my God, I didn't mean for my son to step on the juju I placed there on my way back. She wailed and cried out loud. The crowd murmured in silence and slowly left the compound. Nkechi begged for help, but nobody listened to her. Mrs. Akanwa, who heard everything that went down while frying her gari, stood up and took her anointing oil to the house. Nkechi was shocked and wanted to run when Mrs. Akanwa told her not to. This could have been my son because of your jealousy, but as a mother, I cannot let this happen. She knelt down and prayed quietly for the boy, as his mother stood there sobbing shamefully. She stood up and left the anointing oil. Apply it this night and pray God forgives you. The boy got well. His father, who had heard the story, came the next morning while they were about to take Ifeanyi to school. He thanked them and left the compound. Ifeanyi, my son, Be a good boy in school, okay? Mrs. Akanwa hugged her son as she heard the sound of the keke they had just chartered stop in front of the gate. They heard a loud shout in front of the gate. When they opened it, they saw the keke driver looking at the floor. Lo and behold, lying stretched on the floor was the man who had just stepped out of the compound. As it turned out, Nkechi had set another juju for the first person to cross that gate, and the first person turned out to be her own husband.